Mavericast. I'm Sam, here with Andy.
I'm back.
Yorgey.
Hey.
And Sarah?
Hi.
Who is Sarah? Sarah, who are you?
My name's Sarah. I'm a sophomore, majoring in poli-sci and comm, minoring in legal studies. Yeah.
Who would you say on the political spectrum you're most near? In terms of like politicians or really anyone?
I'd say Scalia. I'm very constitutionally based and Constitution, economics.
Sarah's based.
Shut up. Let me live, Sam.
Okay, today is Wednesday, January 4th.
Wow.
It's been like, 5 years since we've actually recorded one of these?
Yeah,
so,
because I dropped out of the ones during finals week, so that's the first time I've been on.
We were having a rough time.
I had a Slam Jam finals week. I was gone on Tuesday. And Yorgey wasn't even here.
Yeah, it was great.
Great again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yorgey made finals week great again. I don't know if it was ever great in the first place, but
Finals
Yorgey
week
did
was
it.
never great.
It's always been great. Okay, so what was your guys' favorite moment of your Christmas breaks? Just personally, not politically, just like your personal favorite, like, this is the greatest moment of winter break.
Greatest moment?
Yeah.
I don't know. Got to go to New York City and drink beer. So that was cool.
Legally.
Yeah.
Legally.
I'm 21.
I know. How about you, Sarah?
I had surgery over break, so it was not fun. I was in bed, and I watched The Office.
W Downer over here. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Andrew?
I know Kyle was going to like this. I caught up on a lot of reading that I wanted to do on the side.
Nerd.
Sad.
I can't tell what my favorite part was. My dog peed on me, and she pooped on the floor.
She pees on you every day.
Dude, it's so cute. Oh man, favorite part.
Wait, was this Ray or Honey?
Both.
Your favorite part was getting peed on, right?
What?
Your favorite part was getting peed on.
No, I don't like.
Sure?
I don't like the getting peed on part. I just think it's funny that she pees all over the place. Best part of break. I mean, like, I'm a Marxist materialist, so I got a new phone, so that's pretty great. Like, I love Marxism. This podcast is gonna turn into an anarchist communist podcast this year. That's my New Year's resolution.
I love that. It's going to be our podcast.
Yeah.
The Collective.
Really?
What?
Everyone on the show.
Okay.
Communists.
So it's been like 3 years now since we've actually talked about news. Since the past 3 episodes were topic based more so than news based. So yesterday on January 3rd, the 115th Congress was sworn in, and it started with Paul Ryan telling a kid not to dab.
That was so funny.
That was great.
That's
It's a
gonna be
great
a
moment
meme and a
in
gif.
American history. And Andrew, if you want to lead off on this, and
Yeah, so even though it is consequential that Paul Ryan was reelected, I think Chuck Schumer being the new de facto leader of the Democrats is definitely more important. So I think, and we can kind of branch the discussion in this manner, I think Schumer's so interesting because we know he has an existing relationship with Trump, that they know each other from being involved in New York politics. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Trump has actually contributed to Schumer in the past.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see how this direction goes. Because I think if it were still Reed, it would be a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump said over break. I know the Hill tweeted it out, like an article that he said he likes Schumer more than GOP leaders.
Yeah, he did tweet that.
So I was like, oh boy. But I mean, Schumer came out against him on the floor the other day.
Yeah. Well, but before he came out against him, he even told everyone that we got to give him a shot.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he just knows how to play the game.
I think that's a good way to put it. I think Schumer's very pragmatic.
He's trying to be a people pleaser.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the numbers look good for the House and the Senate. 52 to 46 plus 2, which would make 48, in case anyone's wondering. Math.
Don't totally count on the independents, though.
Yeah. And the House is 241 to 194, and they're one vote away from an amendment, like to make an amendment possible within.
I
the
believe
2/3.
so. If I'm not,
that's what I remember hearing. That we're like one in terms after the election, we're one House vote away, and we're one state legislature away.
I know it's the highest concentration of GOP power across the nation since the 20s.
Yeah. My friend was like, oh, like, remember what happened afterwards with the Great Depression? And I was like, okay, hon, let's not talk about the Treaty of Versailles right now. Like,
but I think one thing that's interesting, just in terms of just news coverage the last couple of days, is that we've seen it's like a return to normalcy after the last 2 years of news coverage. We're back to the nitty gritty policy type every day in and day out, and I think it's interesting. It's like refreshing to turn on cable news and not hear, this candidate gave this speech today. Just we're back to normalcy.
No, I know you have it here. Now, for the Independent Ethics Committee, I'm not too knowledgeable on this whole thing. I know that Trump came out against it, and then the GOP scrapped it. Just in terms of publicity, not the best way to start the new Congress.
Not for our GOPs. Yeah.
What was that about? I'm not too familiar with that.
This follows Trump's narrative of drain the swamp. He wants the ethics committee to still be there instead of being gutted. But I think, just in a broader sense, like always, looking at this, this is the first time that they're not getting what they want with Trump. That he's going against what their own agenda is, and I think it's something we're going to get used to.
And I know, that was surprising to me that they would do that. I don't know I didn't hear any arguments for it. I just heard, from House GOP leaders, I just heard that they did it. So that was so bad, just bad press. I mean, the way you don't start off a GOP presidency in the coming days with bad press, because they're going to be giving them bad press for the next 4 years at the very least. Every single day, something's going to come out where they're calling someone a Nazi who happens to be a Republican. So that's just not the best way to start it out. Now you have here the dubs keep coming.
Before we get to there, I want to see do you guys have a specific goal that you want to see from the new Congress? So mine is twofold. Number one, this has been in the news quite a lot recently: repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act, and I want to see the movement of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
I personally just don't see. I think that's going to come quick, but I guess in priority, I want the Obamacare thing just to be, really smooth as possible, and I just want quick tax reform. I think that will get things rolling.
I think it's going to be interesting, at least. I think ACA is the top of the list. They've been saying that. They're already working on it. I know Pence was meeting with congressional leaders today in the past few days to start drafting up.
Yeah, I've seen Pelosi on TV a lot talking about her defense of it.
I think it's in...
She's like, if you break it, you own it. I was like... Hun, it was already broken.
And her and Schumer have they've coined the phrase "Make America Sick Again" if it's repealed. Yeah,
I know. It was announced that President Obama this week was supposed to be meeting with Democrat congressionals to find out how to fight the GOP with Obamacare.
And I heard that Schumer, just side note, that he regrets the nuclear option in the Senate, which is pretty funny.
What the heck?
It's all coming back to bite them now. It's all 8 years of all that nonsense from them, and here comes unified party control of the federal government.
And I think it's a very good point because Republicans were criticized of obstructionism for the last 8 years, and now it's been flipped to where they're going to where I hear so many young people especially say that they want the Democrats in the Senate and the House to obstruct Trump wherever they can.
So one of the things during the campaign that was a big thing for Trump against the Never Trump movement was the Supreme Court pick. When do we expect that to come? Because I know Schumer said he's going to, obstruct it. That was not, or he said he's going to fight whatever he can to prevent Trump from getting a pick in for the next 4 years.
What a double standard, right?
It's ridiculous.
Now,
have you guys heard any timetable? Because I've heard by March, but I don't know if that's set in stone.
March sounds pretty accurate. That Trump's going to get a lot done in the first 100 days, and I think one of those things is going to be that Supreme Court pick, because they need to have a functional court again.
I really not too familiar with the people on the list that he had during the campaign.
I bet they changed.
Yeah, and I know, even that in itself, it was such an unconventional move to release the list during the campaign, and I think it certainly helped him with many conservative voters. Yeah, I think it helps sway me even. Yeah,
because conservative voters love the court.
Yeah,
and he has more judicial appointments on lower courts than Obama had.
Yeah,
and
potentially more court picks too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even on the topic of obstructionists, there was, I forget the exact numbers, but I know Ben Shapiro was going over how many court picks, how many people from in the lower courts and the higher courts as well that the GOP didn't contest, or they didn't obstruct. They're saying that the Democrats want to obstruct now. That's not, for all the obstructionist talk, the GOP let a lot of things slide. Even the Tea Party let things slide with Obamacare and stuff like that. It wasn't completely... obstructionist. It's just that they made it seem that way. When Obama didn't get what he wanted, he cried. And, so look at all these bad people opposing me. blah blah blah. It'll be interesting to see what Trump does with
And
his
specifically
obstructive.
with the Affordable Care Act. There were a couple different times in the last 8 years where we've had sort of de facto referendums on it, and each time we had them, the Democrats lost. I think the first one came with Scott Brown's Senate election in Massachusetts, of all places, that he was elected as a Republican to be against the Affordable Care Act, and then the other times in the midterms in 2010 and 2014. That we've seen an outrage, I would say, not just an outrage, but just an argument against the Affordable Care Act has taken place on multiple times.
And isn't it like Arizona? Is Arizona the state that's getting like
114 or something like that?
Yeah, 114% spike.
Anybody who says that it's working is just ignorant to the reality of the premium and stuff like that. I know that my one of my family members said something like, all of those people who voted for Trump when he was saying that he was going to repeal Obamacare are scared. Like 70% of them didn't think he was actually going to repeal it. I was like, where are you getting your number from, first of all? Because I'm pretty sure people took it very seriously that he's going to repeal Obamacare, because it seemed pretty evident that if he wins, he will probably have unified control of the Congress. So, I mean, that stuff just nonsense. You know, all those. I mean, I know fake news became a big thing over break that we never got to talk about. All the fake news stuff.
Fake news, Russian hacking, lots of stuff.
Did you guys watch the Assange thing last night?
I did watch him on Hannity.
I did too.
Yeah, what do you think? I guess the big thing is, do you believe him?
He's tough because he's such an enigmatic figure, and I think that's the way he's going to be. I mean, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, Fox News would have absolutely ripped Assange a new one, and now Hannity's shilling to him, and he's having him on his show, and I think it's very Sarah Palin apologized.
Yeah, that was crazy.
To Assange, and I think we have to be careful because we need to make sure our interests are in the right place. We can't treat him like a godlike figure that he knows everything. I mean, we need to be look into what he's doing. He's been on Russian-sponsored TV a lot. So we have to be careful with what we're doing with Assange and how much we trust him.
He did say the information came from a non-state party, but did you hear what, like, I think it was our own agencies that they reported about, like, the hack? They said it was, like, a Russian keyboard. That's all they have, that it was Russian.
Oh, yeah. And apparently, I believe he said that a 14-year-old could have hacked Podesta. It was that.
Yeah, he said
Did
that.
you see the email? It was like the change your password here.
Yeah,
And
it was
his
easy. It wasn't
his
even hacking.
password was the word password.
Password. Yeah.
I watched it on YouTube after the fact. I was like, first of all, that's really funny that someone's stupid enough to make their password. Like, I'm pretty sure we learned that, like, in our, I don't know what you guys had in, like, middle school, but, like,
10.
yeah, it's like in elementary school, we had, like, a tech class where we learned about computers, and they said, if you're going to make a password, don't make it, like, something that obvious.
1,
like,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
or my password for my computer.
Wouldn't it have been
Which is
crazy
great.
if it was Comet Pizza?
Oh, God. Fake news. On another note, the wins. We keep on winning.
Oh, yeah, we are.
We keep on winning. Just yesterday, Ford announcing that they're going to invest $700 million in a new plant in Michigan, and the CEO directly cited Trump's policies as a reason for building there instead of Mexico.
When?
What?
What?
When?
When will
What's
they?
happening? What's happening? I have no idea.
I just said when.
Oh. What do you mean when?
Like,
Win.
I thought you said-
W-I-N.
I thought you said
oh,
when.
when. Oh, I thought you said when. Yeah, right.
I thought you said when. I was like,
English
what?
is my 8th language. I'm sorry. I learned like 7 over break. So.
But yeah, this is sweet. Like,
Yeah.
700 new jobs.
And on another note of winning, the Steelers.
Win.
Great.
And I'm sorry to my Penn State friends.
I'm not sorry.
But that was a win for me when they won.
And great thing also, Rogue One was excellent.
It was actually good.
I saw it 4 times.
Wow.
That's a lot.
We'll plug our review
Yeah.
in the link dump.
And Carrie Fisher died.
She died
And then
when,
Reynolds
like,
died.
I got the notification when I was watching the movie.
I
came out and cried.
I was in New York, and like my friend messaged me, and I was like no. But they got. I saw something yesterday that Disney has like an insurance claim on her, in case she died. They have it on all the older actors, so they're getting like $50 million or something because she died.
Whoa.
Which could mean that they're gonna CG her into some things.
Well, it's probably going to be episode 9 because
We
she's
don't know
in
what-
8. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what's gonna happen.
That's
with her.
yeah.
So, but they film all her scenes. That's what I know right now.
They wrapped, right? They're done with.
They haven't
principal
reshoots,
photography.
but yes.
Okay.
I just want to see a trailer already.
There was just no plans for her to die, I think. That's what they said. So that's what's going to make it weird.
Yeah, it's going to be weird.
Well, she wasn't that old. I mean, she was 60. That's...
Well, yeah,
she
just
just
all
was
the
never in
drugs
great
she
health.
did.
Yeah.
What about Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie died too. Her mommy. Any other famous deaths?
One day after.
Mariah Carey's career.
Yeah, right.
I saw that after, and I was like, this kind of like stained All I Want for Christmas Is You. Like, that's
I didn't watch it
song.
live, but everybody kept talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we didn't watch the New Year's stuff until like 5 minutes before the ball was dropping. We were playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 the whole time.
It's a good game.
It's a great game, Kyle.
It is a great
you were
game.
there.
I was
It's a
playing
great
pool.
game.
You were playing pool.
That's
And
also a
I
good
made
game.
And I made you guys hot dogs, and you all enjoyed them.
Wait,
I
you
hate
all had
them.
New Year's together?
Yeah.
That's so cute.
I know, it's really cute. They all got to meet Lucas, who's now famous. Yeah, he's a meme. So I do want to talk about. Yeah.
We have one more win, and that was Sprint announced to bring back 5,000 jobs to the U.S. And we can plug that in the link dump as well.
So I have a question about these two things you're sending here.
Mm-hmm.
Is it due to the protectionist stuff, or is it due to tax stuff? Because
my understanding was tax.
Okay.
That this is stark from the carrier deal where it was direct. I believe the carrier deal was crony capitalism.
Yeah, I think that's
But I believe that these weren't.
Okay. Because I'm trying to like wait to make a judgment on separate thing. I know that on the SoftBank thing, Apple said they're going to invest $1 billion into that too. So I know that.
Carrier deal was crap.
No, the SoftBank.
I know.
Yeah.
What he's done right now is fine. The carrier deal was crap.
Yeah, well, I hope they get rid of it.
Well, do you know like the big thing with Carrier and like what Trump was talking about with like Boeing and Lockheed Martin?
What?
So Carrier also has like some sort of national defense program, and they assume some people assume that what Trump was doing was intentionally, because every time he badmouths a company, their tanks or their stocks tank. So they thought that maybe Trump had some sort of negotiations where he's like, oh, Lockheed Martin sucks, boom, it goes down.
So do they make like military grade air conditioners or like?
That would be cool, but no, they apparently are part of the national defense somehow. Like Samsung makes weapons; they make turrets.
That's cool.
Sentry guns.
I want to make turrets. So I do want to talk about a specific topic today. I think at least for me, break was completely overshadowed. Despite all the good things that happened, I think it was completely overshadowed by the Israeli settlement thing in the UN.
When there's resolutions.
Yeah, right. I think, I had discussions with this with people I know at home. They said one president at a time, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
First of all, I don't really think this is one president at a time. Because this is setting up Trump in a hard position where he has to deal with a world where it's going to be different. I mean, like with the whole Russia thing where Putin didn't really care about it in the first place, which is kind of funny to see that Putin was like, whatever, like, gonna have a Christmas party or something like that. But for this Israeli, for the Israel thing, and I know that it kind of stinks that it came out after the podcast we did for Hanukkah.
Oh yeah, it would have been perfect to include.
But I do really want to talk about this and two other things related to Israel too. Just because I was so disappointed. I mean, I know it's not too surprising, I guess, but it's just so disappointing to see how the world has turned their backs on Israel. Just the whole world. I mean, you look at, and I think people aren't really realizing, with all the Trump stuff cozying up to Putin, or what people see is that people aren't even mentioning that Russia did vote against Israel in that resolution. As far as I don't know, they didn't say it right. They voted for the resolution.
They voted for it, and we
Yes,
just
they did.
abstained.
Right. So, and also Senegal and Venezuela are in the Security Council now. Like, can I be in the Security Council? Want me personally?
Yeah,
It's
these
a rotating-
these rotating seats are funny. Like, I think it was maybe 4 years ago, Luxembourg was in it.
For real?
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. It was like 2 or 4 years ago.
But it was so disappointing. And do you want to just go over what it is, or do you just want to go over a reaction and stuff like that? I feel like people kind of know what it.
Yeah, I think
what
people
really
will know,
happened.
and we'll plug a piece
Yeah.
if you're interested. I think we can talk about our reactions.
So, what was your initial reaction upon reading this? Just flat out, like, obviously, I think we can all. Do we all agree that it's bad?
Yeah.
Yes.
Universally, we agree. Now, to me personally, it symbolizes the Obama administration's disdain for Israel, and I think it represents Obama's dislike for Western civilization.
Well,
because I think he views Israel as an occupying power.
Yeah.
In the region, and I think he views Israel as part of the West, which, I mean, you can look at Dreams from My Father, stuff like that, where you can see he picks up his father's anti-colonialism, anti-imperialist, anti-neo-imperialist stuff like that, which completely ties into his taking America out from the international stage, making us a smaller player, which is why we give Russia a reset button. And also, nobody's really citing that right now. That Obama was the one that gave them the reset button. So, what were your just reactions to this overall? What were you?
It was definitely you could. I mean, there were reports that Kerry was going around getting countries to negotiate, and I guess for them it just seemed like such a perfect combination. Because I guess for Obama's part of kind of his vision of what the world should be, and plus it also just puts red tape on for Trump.
I know. There was the thing that came out where Egypt was going to bring it up to the council.
Oh yeah, they were going to stop it. Yeah.
And then Trump called them, and they took it off. And then there was the report that Obama and Kerry, I don't know, was met or called Palestinian officials, and then they spoke to Senegal and Venezuelan officials, and they brought it back. So Egypt got rid of it because of Trump, and then the other two countries brought it back up, and then the vote happened, and we abstained. And I know...
and look at that. We abstain while Russia votes. I'm telling you, it was, too perfect.
I think, personally, it just... this 8 years of anti-Israel stuff, I mean, I do want to segue into another topic about anti-Semitism, if this is part of a greater anti-Semitic feel in the UN, or just internationally, or definitely in the Middle East. When people talk about... We're talking about the alt-right and the anti-Semitism of the alt-right, and talking about how Trump supporters are neo-Nazis or stuff like that. They seem to forget that outside of which convention were Israeli flags being burned? Outside, which party doesn't support the only Jewish state? And I know
I can visibly remember at the 2012 Democratic Convention, they announced that they would put it in their platform to move the embassy to Jerusalem, and it was booed on the floor of the convention.
I think it's unfair to say the entire Democratic Party doesn't like Israel.
Well, no,
even Chuck Schumer.
No, I agree.
Even Chuck Schumer came out against what Obama did. So I mean, it's.
Well, right.
Chuck Schumer is Jewish.
It's more of a 50-50 split.
No. I think we're highlighting specific events. I don't think we're insinuating it as a whole.
I wouldn't call the Democratic Party an anti-Semitic party. I mean, Bernie Sanders almost won the nomination, and he's a Jewish guy.
But the Democrats also talked about ridiculing him for his faith.
Right. Well, and that's a good point. Does that tie into
Joseph Lieberman was the first Jewish person to be on a national ticket.
I was going on the internet, scrolling around and stuff. I know this is very minor, but I saw people referring to Netanyahu as really dirty things. I mean, I would call this anti-Semitic. I saw Netan Yahoo. I saw Netan FU, just one word. People making fun of his name.
Clever.
Well, right, but people making fun of his name, making fun of how he's Jewish, stuff like that. For all the stuff that they talk about the right, that they talk about how there's anti-Semitism on the right. It's much if it is on the right, which I don't believe it is, because I think we all strongly believe in freedom of religion. I think that we believe in equality regardless of race, ethnicity.
But I wouldn't rule out the extreme of the extreme.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But is this extreme, or is it well within the normalcy of the left?
I mean, I guess this type of stuff happens on both sides. The problem really is just that, I mean, the Democratic Party is just putting blinders on, and they'll call out anyone on the right for saying even the littlest things, and then whatever statements they make could be considered whatever, but that's off limits.
And that's I too. I want to be careful with tossing around words because I think the left does that. They will toss around racist, sexist, homophobic, etc. So I want to be careful with tossing around anti-Semitic until it's garnered, until it's earned, until there is a clear reason to give that title to someone or something.
Now, I agree with you, and I think that we can't be we're not about buzzwords. We're about actual explanation, what it is. I know I saw on the internet recently over break when all this stuff came out, people started talking about anti-Semitism on the internet. There's a thing in Palestine. I don't know if it was a Palestinian-owned region of the area or if it was in a Middle Eastern country neighboring Israel. But there was a place called Hitler 2. That was like a store that people go to. It has Hitler's face, and it's called Hitler 2. It's like what you would think like a giant eagle logo would look like, and it's like this cartoonish looking logo, and it says Hitler 2. I read over break also that in Palestinian textbooks
we spoke about this on the podcast actually about for the Hanukkah episode that there are two different, either Palestinian textbooks will praise Hitler or they will deny that the Holocaust happened.
So that whole Hitler praise is actually non-exclusive to Palestine. That's actually it's actually really weird. So while the West really deplores Hitler, the East, like, they don't have like any stance,
like a general stance.
So I think it's Thailand. Like they're like Nazism's a fad. It's crazy.
Yeah, did you hear about that?
Oh wait, what was about a school?
Yeah, the principal made like this mock Nazi march, and he had all the kids dress up as Nazi officers, and they held big Nazi flags.
Okay,
he was pretending to play the part of Hitler.
Yeah, it was
like there's pictures and videos from it.
No.
It's scary as someone who's. I mean, like, I'm not ethnically Jewish according to Judaism, but I have Jewish family member. I mean, if you go, I hate to say, but if you go for the Hitler standard, where 1/8 of your blood is Jewish, using that standard, I'm Jewish according to some people. So I'm sure a lot of people have Jewish relatives in some way. So for this to be coming up in the modern day, it's really scary.
Just like to kind of frame it from our worldview, like being from the West, I can't imagine somebody recreating Mao or recreating Pol Pot. Like I can't even imagine it.
It's just it's scary, but it's also disappointing that not to say that Obama's a Nazi, because he's not. But do you think this empowers those people to feel like they have an edge over Israel or over those who support the Jewish state or want to protect Jewish people throughout the world? Do you think like an act like this now, it's kind of like where Trump and the alt-right, where it's not directly, but do you think people will misconstrue the image of a certain action and make it their own? You know what I mean? Like they twist it. Like I know how David Duke took the Trump immigration plan and he said he wants to make America white. Like, do you see that same thing happening with people using this or something similar to say, we're going to, like, this, this helps us. Like, this is part of our movement.
I think it can happen on both sides. Yeah.
It provides a window, but it just like with the alt-right, it's like there doesn't have really any leverage.
Right. And again, I think this is very... I mean, when you're talking about anti-Semites, like actual Nazis, there's a very small number of them throughout the world. I know we've spoken about it on the podcast before, and we're probably going to talk about it soon or write about it. And in Andrew Klavan's book I read, now he's ethnically Jewish. He was raised Jewish. And there's a whole chapter of the book towards the end where he lived in Europe for a while, and he goes and he tries to find like the root of European anti-Semitism. And he says people don't realize that they're saying anti-Semitic things in normal conversation because it's just part of what you say. It's like you wouldn't really think it's anti-Semitic if you say something. I can't think of an example of what he writes, but I think personally this type of thing, it's scary to see in our own world because I mean we've seen the potential of evil. We always talk about the Holocaust and stuff like that, but I think people are very eager to
jump to conclusions.
Not that, and also to make loose comparisons.
Yeah.
I'm not saying these people are actually Hitler and they're gonna go round up Jews and kill them. I'm not saying that.
But people will take that as what you actually mean, even though it's not the case.
Right, and also with the loose historical comparisons, I don't want to get to this later about the Trump-Hitler comparisons that I keep on hearing that I think are so completely wrong, ahistorical, and just disrespectful in some ways.
Yeah, and we can detail that much later. Yeah.
But in terms of this, Israeli, set up like Israel is the only Jewish state, and I was watching Netanyahu's speeches from his speech to Congress in 2014.
Oh, excellent.
2014 or 15?
2015.
2015. I was keeping track of what he was writing about the thing, about the settlement. I would say, when people say they support Israel, I think they get confused where you support at least for me, I support the existence of the Jewish state for the protection of Jewish people. Seeing where before Israel came to be in the modern sense, Jews were persecuted all over. Personally, I know, like, my ancestors were persecuted in Russia, kicked out in the pogroms after the Tsar died. So they've always been a scapegoat for the problems of certain civilizations. Hitler said that they were responsible for World War I, stuff like that. So I support the existence of Israel in that sense to protect people. However, when people say they support Israel, I think you have to be, you don't necessarily support all the policies of Netanyahu or something like that. If you disagree with the specific policies, I think people don't think about that. Like, you can support America, you can like America, but you're not going to say you love everything, all the policies about America. I think it's the same thing. I don't know about you guys, but
no, I think I get what you're saying, and the way that I can apply it, like through the American lens, is I don't care if the president has an RRD next to their name when a situation of national security arises. So whether it's regard to Russia influencing the elections, potentially, that's somewhere where I will side with whoever the president is, because it could happen to either party, it could happen to anybody, and our own national identity is more important than our partisan identity in that respect.
Right, and I think, we've seen throughout our history where that happens. Where people put aside partisan, after Pearl Harbor.
Because JFK is one of my favorite American historical figures, because, as a Democrat, he was such a strong Cold Warrior that he wanted to combat communism more in the world. And I think that's another area where country comes first. Right.
So in terms of reactions to the settlement, we briefly spoke about Schumer. I know you have Trump's reaction right here if you want to read it out.
I was watching my phone for Trump to make a statement, and as soon as he tweeted this, instantly retweeted and favorited, quote, "As to the UN, things will be different after January 20th. And I'm just ecstatic to hear this level of support. And I love that also that Trump and Netanyahu know each other as well, because both business background, and in 2013 Trump made a public endorsement as a businessman for Netanyahu in Israel in his election.
It seems like a lot of Israeli officials are just like clamoring for Trump to get into office.
Yeah, definitely. I know you mentioned was it Rubio and Cruz that introduced the legislation to move the embassy?
Yes.
Do you think it's going to go through?
I certainly hope so.
Oh yeah.
And then Lindsey Graham introduced a measure to defund the UN.
I saw that they voted on it today, I think. And I'm not too sure.
Wow, good. He actually did something.
It was either introduced officially to the floor, or it's being voted on. I'll check the Hill and see if they did, but pretty much they are slowly but surely, before Trump's getting in, pulling back the last 8 years of Obama's policy.
And it's great. It's
Is
great.
Is it too late for us to oppose the resolution? Because I know Congress is going to vote on it soon. Is it too late for Congress to overpower the president's international power and make a statement as the U.S.?
Well, we can just ignore the resolution.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
That's what Israel's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's anything the UN does, Yorgey hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Now obviously when this happened, it was on the eve of the first night of Hanukkah, which is fabulous timing on the UN's part. Now I was watching Ben Shapiro's podcast. He happened to put out a podcast on that day. It wasn't even planned, because it was happening. Now he was talking about the Israel-Palestine issue as a whole, and you can criticize me as much as you want, because we can talk about it. Now when Kerry was saying the two-state solution's in danger because Israel is headed by right-wing radicals, blah, 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 people don't usually know that Palestine's led by a legitimate terrorist organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hamas is a legitimate terrorist group, like ISIS, like all the others. They put their bases under hospitals and schools, and then Israel is seen firing missiles back at hospitals and schools, because what are you going to do? Are you going to let your citizens get murdered and stuff? These are people... the Hamas celebrates, the Holocaust, like we said, or they teach it as if it never happens. They make excuses. When I talk about Palestine, I make a way. I like to talk about how it's not the people of Palestine. They're not to blame for Palestine's actions. It's Hamas. They're in charge of most of Palestine.
It's a lot of it's just like the typical situation in the area. It's just every group is advantageous. And so it's like, well, probably not, of course not every Palestinian supports like Hamas aiding them. It's just that it is like what it is, really.
And like, I'm sure there are moderate voices within their government, but that's not who's leading.
Right. They're democratically elected terrorists. You know, when people talk about the two-state solution, Netanyahu made a point of putting this out. He said they've made attempts to make peace time and time again, and it's always rejected, no matter what. Like, no matter how much they concede, they never accept the peace agreements.
Well, it probably depends on the terms. They're just really upset with the terms, most likely.
Now, I did a little bit of Wikipedia researching, and when people do, the Israel-Palestine thing. First of all, the Palestine group was made in the 1980s, if I'm correct. Like the actual Palestine, that's the first time the name was actually spoken about, right?
Yeah. So it's. Even Gaddafi talked about it, and like I think it was like the Arab League or whatever. He talks about like you said, like beforehand, no one saw it as Palestinian land. It was completely like ethnic or
Jordanian before that.
Oh yeah, but Gaddafi generalized it, saying like it wasn't Palestinian land. He's like, we all knew it. It was just considered Arab land, and they just really hated that there were Jews in Arab land.
Now Ben Shapiro had a great quote. And he said, Muslims only care about Jerusalem and Israel because Jews care about Jerusalem and Israel. Christians only care about it because Jews care about it. I know you have right here. Judaism's about 3,000 years old. Islam is, what, a couple thousand?
1,400?
1,400. So, I mean, in terms of, look, Jews were there first. I mean, if you want to talk, I mean, like, that's a broad statement. But, I mean, when you look at the numbers, Judaism's older. That was the Holy Land before any of those other religions came to be. Now,
and the claim to land follows the exact same, like ethnically, the claim to land follows the exact same thing because, the Judea people lived there for 4,000 years.
Yeah. So when people talk about that stuff, I'm like, look, the actual age of the religion is far older, is twice as old as Islam. So this is not a
this isn't a couple, like 1 or 2 years. This is 1,000 plus years.
Well established religion, culture, I guess ethnicity, if you want to go into Jewish ethnicity, that has existed for a while. I know when I learned about the Holocaust in high school and college last spring, my high school teacher went over the history of anti-Semitism, specifically about Jews going to Europe, about how Jews were, if I'm killing it, I'll put a correction in the link down. How Jews were kicked out of the Middle East.
Yeah, I took a Holocaust history class in high school, and we detailed the Jewish diaspora up in the Middle East. Yeah.
So they were kicked out, and then they spread across all over Europe, and they were taken advantage of. They were. People had disdain for them because of their culture, their religion, the way they acted.
Anywhere you went, you can pick and choose any country, whether it's you can look at Italy, you can look at France, you can look at Russia, and there's the historical anti-Semitism.
Right. So, the whole point of the existence of Israel is to protect Jewish people. I mean, that's the basic premise. Jewish people are persecuted all over the world, thousands and thousands of years. I mean, they have how many holidays based off the fact that they were freed because people kept oppressing them. So, I mean, I don't even think people realize that Passover is, I think it's Passover, I'm really bad at this, is about the Jews being freed from slavery in Egypt. People don't even, it's that old. We think of Egypt as way back when, but Judaism existed then, and it was well established then, for them to be seen as their religion.
Yeah, and I remember learning about that in high school because I just sort of had the notion that it's only marginally older than Christianity, and it was
it's
shocked to
very very old. So when people talk about that stuff, it's a very old religion. It's very well established. When they're talking about how Israel cannot have the West Wall, and I believe is that the second or first holiest place in the entire religion? It's one of the two. So they're technically,
the temple might be considered the most.
Right. So, I was really listening to Ben Shapiro. I know he's Orthodox Jewish, so he is knowledgeable on the fact. Obviously, you take into account bias, stuff like that. But, at the end of the day, I don't see a world where a legitimate, realistic thing where there's a legitimate Palestine and Israel solution. I mean, I don't. Realistically speaking, I don't see a way for there to be an Israel and Palestine living in peace together.
I mean, really, I even think that their expansion is even justified in a weird way. In a funny way, it's almost like a modern day rite of conquest.
Well, I mean, it's almost. I mean, they're portrayed as Western imperialist, captors, but at the same time, you don't see anybody leaving Israel or Jews leaving Israel to go live in the Middle East because they know they'll be killed, enslaved, whatever horrible things.
Right. And if we just take a brief look at Israel compared to the countries it's surrounded by, we see a huge tech industry. The only country in the entire region that we would deem Western, that we would deem a democracy. And I mean, inherently, I believe that these values are worth spreading.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Kerry. Oh my God, I only was reading the things he said because I can't bear to hear his voice.
I watched some who speech on TV. But
he said what? Israel can either be Jewish or democratic, but not both.
But not
both. Yeah.
And that's completely ludicrous because there are Arabs who serve in Jewish parliament. There are Christians who can serve. I mean, it's ridiculous.
How about the fact that I don't know, Judaism influenced our own country, Judeo-Christian values, Judeo-Jewish, it's the foundation of democracy, of modern day representative democracy, I don't know how else to put it. It's right there in front of you. It's completely ignorant to the facts that it can be Jewish and democratic at the same time. Now when people say this, is Israel perfect by any means in legislation? Probably not. I'm not too familiar with their legislation.
And I don't know a country that is. Yeah.
Right. So, when people talk about that, do I think? Now, I'm not too sure about Israeli policies regarding Arab citizens, regarding Christians. People say they're marginalized within the country. I'm not too knowledgeable on that. If you guys want to fact check that. But, if Israel has a policy that's bad, then you can come out and say, well, that's bad. You can't sanction them into doing that. They have sovereignty. You know what I mean? They're their own state. You can say, hey, we're your ally. You probably shouldn't be doing this, guys. You know what I mean? But there's still, I hate the idea that people... It's so disgusting to me that people burn Israeli flags and then point the finger at people like us and Trump supporters and say that they're anti-Semites. It's look, I'm not going to call you an anti-Semite because you're burning an Israeli flag. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong that you burn any flag. It's disrespectful. But for them to say, to me, using their logic, it's the pot calling the kettle black. You're they'll say you're anti-Semitic, but then they're burning Israeli flags. Now, do I think they're anti-Semites? Literally, probably not. That's just their belief that the Israel-Palestine issue is wherever they take hand. Over break, I was talking to people who I know from home, maybe family, and I kept hearing the Trump-Hitler comparison. I hate this I hate broad generalizing comparisons historically.
Nothing is ever as simple as a one statement.
Right.
This is this. It's never that simple.
I mean, no one would say, Obama's Stalin or Obama's Castro.
Bernie Sanders is Mao.
Right.
Yeah.
No one would say that. So, I have a few different perspectives on this issue because I think it is an issue. I think.
I agree.
I think if you. I don't want to say normalize. If you keep on talking about things that are actually untrue, it's gonna hurt when something maybe does become true.
Oh, and I think you're 100% correct. And I think let's just kind of get this out right now. Richard Spencer he's considering running for Congress in Montana. For those of you who don't know, he's a blatant white supremacist.
Oh yeah, he's a big white nationalist.
And this is why we have to be careful because when somebody like this actually arises. We have to call them what they are.
Right.
And if you're desensitized to this term fascist, to this term, we can say white supremacist. Anti-Semitic. Exactly.
You're not going to see that.
Yes.
That's a red flag.
It's a boy who cried wolf.
Yes.
That's literally what it is.
When the real example comes, we have to be ready for it. And we have to call it what it is. And that's why we should tread so lightly in making, as Sam says, ahistorical comparisons.
Right. And I have a little blurb here that I wrote, and I'll expand upon it. This is not a comparison that we should take lightly. Hitler, by all accounts, is the worst man in history. I think by far. Sadly, there's been so many bad people in history, but to me, he's by far the worst, just because of the sheer brutality of what he did, the specific targeting of what he did, of the people he targeted, and just the efficiency of how it was done, to the point where they were acting like they're treating like sacks of meat, not even human beings.
And that's even though Stalin and Mao have technically higher death counts. I agree with Sam on this matter.
It's when people talk about this, it's a disrespect to the people who actually suffered from it. For people to say Trump is Hitler, first of all, it's broad. I mean, again, it'd be like me saying Obama's Castro, something like that. Nonsense like that. You can't. In my family, like my grandmother survived Nazi occupation in Greece, which a lot of people don't even know about. People actually suffered under this guy, and to make a broad statement like that, Trump's not going to occupy land. Trump's not going to. I hate to say this because it's like it shouldn't. I wish it was something that didn't even have to be said.
I think I know what you're going to say, and I feel bad when I have to say this because I hate giving this claim legitimacy.
Yeah. It gives it legitimacy. Like you don't want to argue against it because you give them legitimacy, but at the same time, it's so frequent. I heard a high school teacher at the high school I went to, the one that gave a really great lecture about anti-Semitism in the Holocaust, multiple lectures, said it's going to be like we're having Mussolini in the White House for 4 years. It's like, these are terrible people in history. You can't just say that. Like, it's not...
I mean, they can just say that.
Well, they can. They do have the right.
They're just not right.
And this is nothing new to them either. I can remember reading about in the early 2000s, college students were calling George Bush a fascist.
Yeah. I mean, we had the episode on fascism, and it got lost because my computer died. Or
sad.
It just,
sad.
It was very sad. That was a good podcast. But there's no way to recover it. But, this would have been great background for it. But, when people talk about fascism, talk about Hitler, you got to look at the specific facts. I was listening to an audiobook, the newest Hitler biography. It's by Volker Ulrich, and it's from his birth to 1939. I don't know if there's a second volume coming out just during the war, but I haven't gone through it. It's like a really big book. But pretty much it details his family history. So his mom and his dad, all the way down to his birth and his childhood, how he was raised. I've gotten to the part where Germany lost World War I. So, and
these formative experiences are so important no matter who the figure is.
Right. And also during the coup, the attempted coup. People don't know. I hate sometimes when professors and teachers will put bullet points on the board and not really explain it. They'll just say, Hitler was involved with the putsch in 1920 whatever, and he became famous for it. But if you actually look at what happened during the coup, the attempted coup, they were like armed. There was like an armed militia of Nazis trying to take over. I think it was Munich.
Yeah, it's in Munich. There's still like the lion statue where like they cover it and there's like bullets shot.
Yeah, like that was a legitimate like attempted coup. It wasn't like a bunch of people standing in it wasn't like Occupy Wall Street where they're all protesting. This was a legitimate like, we have guns, we're gonna fire back. People died because there was gunfire. So for people to make a comparison Trump to Hitler, again, I hate to give it legitimacy. Yeah. But Trump didn't do that. Like it's so stupid.
Trump has never been to jail.
Right.
Like he's never. Yeah.
Hitler was a legitimate political figure in Germany before he was.
Trump has never wrote a book, calling for the extermination of individuals. Yeah.
Just good deals. Trump wants to make good deals. It's
like he may be a bully. He may say things that we don't like, but to make this far of a leap is insane.
Right. And when people say, there's this one thing I saw where it was like he wants to kick out a lot of people, referring to Mexican legal immigrants and Muslims, the refugees, and the alleged what was it called, database of Muslims, which is a complete violation of the Fifth. But so I think anybody would objectively oppose that.
Most rational,
right?
Yeah.
So. When people use those, there's one thing where it was like this loudmouth guy. It's like, okay, there's like a lot of loudmouths. Like, I'm sorry if that's your standard for comparing people to Hitler. Like, there's a lot of Hitlers, I guess, if you're saying that. And even with the word fascist. When we were at the Trump table, someone called me a fascist when I was wearing a Rand Paul shirt. I brought this up multiple times because it's Rand Paul.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's like you obviously know nothing about fascism or Rand Paul if you're going to label someone like that.
When people hear what they hear from other people, and if everyone else is jumping to extremes, then everyone else is going to get on board.
Right.
And then they're not going to be able to call out the actual thing when it occurs, like you said with the...
Spencer.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a boy who cried wolf. That's the best way I can describe it. I don't really have another way to say it. I think it pretty much wraps up the whole thing. You know,
how about Rand wanting Trump to audit the Fed?
Audit the Fed?
Oh, dude, that's happening. You know, it's just so disappointing to see people giving into this stuff. You know, people treating it like it's any other historical comparison. You know what I mean? Like, even when people like good and bad comparisons too.
Well, I mean, everyone like our generation, you know, we haven't experienced those types of things,
right.
So we're just like so out of touch. It's just so easy.
Right. I think as millennials, I think it's a big responsibility as where we are in history. We're the last generation. I guess the post 9/11 generation, whatever they're calling it, is two, but I consider them part of our generation. Like, we're the last generation that's ever going to be able to meet World War II veterans, meet Holocaust survivors, see these people in real life. Like, as we get farther away from history, we tend to think it's so easy to compare things and to say this is that or something like you know, make these broad comparisons. But really, you know, you have to look at the specifics of stuff. You know, there are broad themes in history, obviously, but when talking about something as serious as this, you know, calling Noam Chomsky called the Republican Party the most dangerous organization on earth or something like that.
That's hilarious.
Right? Like, coming from Noam, right? Like, the farther away we're getting from that era in history, it's becoming, people are just, I hate to say normalizing again, but it seems like people are normalizing the type of thing where it's like, that's a very rare event in human history. It's never happened. Something like to the extremes of the Holocaust, the extremes of Stalin's pogroms. I guess it's kind of similar to. I had to make a broad generalizing statement myself, but I guess you could say it's kind of similar to Putin's imprisoning dissenters. I don't know if that's completely right, but I know that's. I mean, people still imprison dissenters. So for this type of thing, I don't know. I just think it's gross, and it comes from so many people.
And what I also tell people, even if they're not as extreme as making this comparison, I tell them, I mean, Trump is not a comic book villain. He is not this one-sided, oh, he's a bad guy, you know. And I just want to have a conversation with so many of these people and just wonder what exactly is he going to do, because his deportation policy is not unlike Barack Obama's deportation policy, who Obama has deported more illegal immigrants than any other president.
Well, even just the broad comparison of he wants to kick people out, Hitler wanted to kick people out. It's like that's not a good comparison. Like, because at some point in life, I'm sure everybody's wanted to kick someone out of something. Like, you can't, you know, broad things like that are just stupid. Like, that's just what it is. Like, it's ahistorical. I wrote right here, it's ahistorical. You can't.
And I think if you boil it down to one word, that's exactly what I would
It's just
use.
what it, you know. I mean, there's a whole book. The book this thick, and it's pretty big book about Hitler just between his birth and 39. So I think it ends right before the invasion. So, you know, with that much information to boil it down to one sentence, it's very. I mean, obviously you can summarize some parts of Hitler's life, but to boil it down to a broad comparison like that, it's like, come on, like it's just, you can't do that. Like, it's bad, because once again, if it actually comes up, everyone's like, oh, well, like, that's happened before. Like,
yeah, might as well just say he was an artist turned leader.
Right. Like, actually, there's an interesting part of the book about the art school that I never knew before. So he got rejected from the art school.
Yeah, he did.
And then he was living in Austria, I believe. The art school was in Austria. It was in Vienna, I think. And he's living there he had a roommate, and the roommate got into the art school, and Hitler was working like these low wage, like really crummy jobs, and the roommate didn't know. Hitler was so ashamed of not getting into the art school that he didn't tell the guy, until one night where he got so infuriated with the guy that he yelled at him, and like, you know, yelled at him and was like, "I didn't get in," blah blah blah. Like they had like a screaming match, and this is all from, I believe, the Nuremberg trials, where they were trying to find out everything about Hitler, everything about the Nazis, stuff like that. So again, like the specifics are important. You know, the way certain events impact certain people lead them on a path. You know, even in the book it says, you know, when Hitler found out Germany had surrendered, he was disappointed, but he didn't immediately jump to the conclusion that it was Jews or that it was this or that. Like that comes later on. So people develop over time. So you can't, you know, the final version that we know of Hitler in 45, after all the terrible things have happened. Like that's what we think of, but over the progression of his life, he wasn't a Nazi his whole life.
No, nobody's born a terrorist. Nobody's born. Yeah,
there's certain things that happen that lead you to doing certain things, and to understand that's important when comparing those people. When
absolutely
doing those things, like you said, the formative experiences are really important. You know,
they can tell you it's the key to anybody's life.
Yeah,
you know, you can predict things.
Mm-hmm.
Like John Kerry's foreign policy was influenced by his time in Vietnam. That he took a starkly different perspective than many people, and you can say that for anybody, you can pinpoint probably their own policies back to their formative life.
Even I know I briefly mentioned Obama, his upbringing against imperialism, what he views as imperialism, like
and Trump. You know, if you Google, you know, the American dream, I feel like Donald Trump is someone who comes up, somebody who worked very hard and got where he was because of that, and that impacted his own experience and his own worldview.
Mm-hmm.
They even marketed. That's what he was advertised as on his own site.
Mm-hmm. They said it at the RNC too. I think he's like
the very definition of an American success story.
I think Ivanka said it, so it's okay. You were like
Ivanka.
Actually,
hey.
well, you said you went to Trump Tower. Actually, side note, you said you went to Trump Tower over break. I went to Trump Tower over break. When I left Trump Tower, they evacuated the building, like an hour after I left, because there was a suspicious package.
It's probably a normal occurrence these days.
Yeah, probably. It was really interesting getting in. I remember.
It must suck living there if that's gonna happen.
Well, I remember going there because a family friend worked at the Disney store, like a block away when it was there. Way back. And we would always go to Trump Tower afterwards because we always were like, oh, like Donald Trump, like The Apprentice.
You're fired.
Because we watched The Apprentice, so he's like this cool guy. Like we all would watch his show. And I remember going in. It's like just normal Trump Tower. You walk in the doors, and it's like real gold, beautiful, blah blah. They closed down the block. You have to get through. They have to look in your bag. There's a cop standing on the sidewalk. They look at your bag. And then you can go through, and then the entrance to the building's right there.
And you have to declare what you're in for.
I'm curious, how many tourists were there?
A lot. It was a lot. I think a lot of people were going to Trump Tower.
Well, then again, too, like New York was pretty like bopping because of like New Year's and Christmas.
Right. But there were a lot of people going in to see. I know. And then when you walk in, first of all, outside of Trump Tower, on the two sides of the entrance, there's two guys with the biggest machine guns I've ever seen in my life, and with canines.
Are the trucks still outside? The ones that would prevent like rioters?
No, the road's completely open.
Yeah, but the sidewalk is restricted. And then when you walk in, there's Secret Service people checking all the bags, just standing there with like these massive guns, making sure nobody's doing anything. And then when you walk in a bit more across from the elevator, there's media people just sitting there. It was really funny.
And I think what's funny, like if you were a tourist, like there was a high chance that you could run into somebody like Mitt Romney, Rex Tillerson, David Petraeus, just like in Shinzo Abe, just hey, you know, they're coming down the escalator.
Hey, like that's pretty crazy. I mean, like I know my brother was like, this is so dumb. Like it's such a waste of money to like secure this blah blah blah.
It's the center of the world.
I was like, it's where he lives. Like I'm sure wherever Obama lived, they did the same thing. But Obama didn't live in New York City. Trump lives in New York. He's lived in New York City. Like. It's
I mean, he's had everybody, like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, like all of these powerful people have all come to Trump Tower.
There's been a lot of, I mean, to transition from the Trump-Hitler thing, just in terms of just all the news coming out over break, there were a lot of, like, really interesting things that came out about the administration of Rex Tillerson, which we haven't covered. You know, what will that bring about with foreign policy in terms of Russia, Israel, stuff like that, you know, the big ones right now. Huge developments like happened over break, and it stinks that we couldn't record because we all weren't here. But
Sorry that we don't live here. Just
Yeah.
waiting for you.
I don't live here either. I live in I almost said I live in Pittsburgh.
Wait, you live in Jersey.
Yeah, the greatest state on earth.
Yeah, I'm a little biased to Maryland. Sorry.
Nah,
You have the
PA's,
Ravens, by the way.
PA's based.
Don't you like the Redskins though?
I do like the Redskins.
I like Kirk Cousins, but
Oh
Yo.
yeah, Cousins is great.
You like that?
you like that?
Did you see what he did to the GM this year, by the way? He said,
No.
"You like me now," and he
Oh,
like
yeah.
rubbed the GM's head, and I was like, "That's not a way to treat your boss."
I went to the Steelers Browns game and I completely forgot that Griffin was back. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, who's playing quarterback today? And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
They've cycled through 5 or 6 quarterbacks this year? Yeah.
When Griffin left the Redskins, I bought a Griffin jersey on eBay for
I have a Griffin jersey.
for $40. And I gave it to my friend who's a Redskins fan. By the way, I met Josh Norman.
Who?
So, she's not a real fan. She doesn't know who Josh Norman is.
Norman.
Who's number 24 on the Redskins?
Oh, that guy!
Yeah, that guy. The guy who picked up Odell Beckham Jr. in October. Do you ever see that?
Yeah.
He like legitimately picked like a grown man up.
Okay, at least I can follow a game of football when it's playing.
True. I have certain family members that when they watch football, it's like, whoa, a 2-yard pass. I'm
Yeah.
like, guys, like this is
No.
not fun. Like we don't enjoy 2-yard passes.
Like, I'm not, because the Steelers were playing during Christmas, like, we actually took our plates into my aunt and uncle's living room because the game was on.
I want to make an official announcement. I apologize to Andrew and everybody for doubting the Steelers.
Oh wait, Sam owes me a different apology too about the research methods final.
Wait, what'd I do with that one?
You said that if I had to hire Greg, you'd apologize.
Andrew, there's no video on the podcast, but I am pulling out money. 1-5.
Did you owe him money?
2-5. 3-5.
Wait,
4-5.
We made a bet in Hillman.
I'm sorry, but Sam, I'm sorry.
That's a stupid idea.
Yes, it was. Congratulations.
Really dumb. Andrew killed me.
I'm
Damn.
I'll invest this into the Maverick.
This is
in
the
some
free
capacity.
market.
Mhm.
Actually, a funny joke about the free market. I sold my little brother headphones over break, and my mom found out, and she made me give back the money and him back the headphones. I was like, Mom, you're interrupting with the free market right now. I was like, this is free commerce. You have no right.
It's the mom hand.
Yeah. It's not so invisible, though. Bye,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.
This is a one-time occurrence, so that's lit.
Oh, really now?
No, like having a 7 o'clock meeting.
Okay, I was going to
Oh,
say.
I was like, oh, we want you. Who want to back?
So before we go, I'd just like to say here at the Pitt Maverick, you can email us at thepitmaverick@gmail.com. Also, if you go to the contact us on our website, you can contact us with whatever you want. You know, fan mail, memes, you know, whatever.
Yorgey will take your memes.
Yeah. Also, we have a donation page on Patreon. You can access that from thepitmaverick.com. I'll link it in the link down below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, follow us on SoundCloud, and we're on iTunes. So that's really cool.
And my last question for everybody: what did we learn on the Mavericast today?
Sam should never make bets about grades with Andrew. How about you, Yorgey?
What did you learn on the Mavericast today?
What I learned? Yeah, don't take bets.
And you, Andrew?
I learned how to make the best deals.
Yep. And with that, we'll see you next week.